Good evening, everybody. This is Casper with the Tropical Weather Threat Society bringing you a special update regarding the Atlantic Basin, primarily focused on Tropical Depression number 9 and Category 5 Humberto out here. So we've got the 11 in on the majority of this. I'm still waiting on the cone and the key messages from the National Hurricane Center here. Um, we still have Tropical Depression 9. We did not get an upgrade to tropical storm status. The overall discussion makes mention that it is drifting rather slowly and it is quite diffuse, tilted with height, and we've got some potential good news for y'all here tonight. So let's get right to it here with the 11 p.m. advisory. Currently, we are located at 22.4 north, 76.7 west, approximately 220 miles northwest of the eastern tip of Cuba, and approximately 100 miles southwest of the central Bahamas. Maximum sustained winds of 35 miles an hour, and is currently moving northwest at 2 miles an hour. Minimum central pressure down to 1,004 millibars. We still have tropical storm warnings in effect for the central and northwestern Bahamas and all of the other islands in and around there, plus a tropical storm watch from the Palm Beach Martin County line to the Flagler Volusia County line here along the east coast of Florida. Taking a look at our hazards affecting land. Wind, we obviously, that's kind of a given, being that we have tropical storm watches and warnings. We are expecting tropical storm force winds and tropical storm conditions. Rainfall. Tropical Depression 9 is expected to produce additional rainfall of 4 to 8 inches across eastern Cuba and the Bahamas. This rainfall will likely produce flash and urban flooding. Mudslides are also possible in areas of higher terrain across eastern Cuba. The system is also expected to bring a threat of heavy rainfall from the east coast of Florida northward into the eastern Carolinas. Rainfall amounts of 3 to 6 inches are possible, with localized totals of 10 inches across portions of the coastal Carolinas. This rainfall could result in flash urban and river flooding. Changes in the forecast track could result in adjustments to these rainfall totals, and that could very well be coming. There's some big news in the 11 p.m. discussion here tonight. Storm surge again 1 to 3 feet along the areas of onshore winds here in parts of the northwestern Bahamas. And then the surf with a tropical cyclone out there. Please exercise caution. Stay out of the water. If you are going to the beach and you plan on trying to get into the water, please check with your local officials. Let's see. Do we have. There's our new cone of uncertainty. And take a look, folks. It has shifted to the east. Still forecast to be a hurricane, and folks here in Bermuda would are recommended to just keep a progress watch on what we've got here with tropical depression number 9. Please just keep a very close watch on it. That would be appreciated. You're going to end up with watches and warnings from Humberto alone, but you may end up with a second round as this cone has shifted further to the east and is now favoring a more sharp turn to more open waters and away from direct landfall with the southeastern United States, which would be it would be welcomed not to have a significant impact and potential flooding event. Taking a look at the 0Z guidance, the HMON is the only one that is still and has been steady on this, showing a landfall into parts of the southeastern United States. There are a few other ensembles and we'll go over them here in a little bit. But for the most part, we've got a much slower Tropical Depression 9, which is now translating. It didn't get out of here fast. If you guys remember what I told you a few days ago, if it gets down here towards eastern Cuba, the steering flow down here is not what it was, say, 75 miles to its northeast. It's just not. And at this point now, we're barely crawling. Land interactions have severely taken a toll, and now it is quite slow. It is a very shallow system. It didn't get the opportunity to feel some of the upper level flow and pull northward as quickly as some of the models were calling for. I will have to say the UK Met is probably going to be the one that performed the best on this, because the entire time the UK Met has been saying this would pull up, get about even with the Cape Canaveral latitude line, Cape Canaveral, Florida, and then turn out to the right. So we're going to look into all of those here momentarily. All right, we do have our final graphic that we needed, and that is the key messages. Key message number 1. The depression is expected to strengthen and bring tropical storm conditions to portions of the central and northwestern Bahamas through Sunday night. Tropical storm conditions are also possible along portions of the east coast of central Florida beginning Monday, where a tropical storm watch is in effect. Rainfall will continue to impact eastern Cuba and the Bahamas through the weekend, which will likely produce flash and urban flooding. Mudslides are possible in the higher terrain. Hey, Keith, how you doing there, Bubba? There is a significant threat of heavy rainfall early next week from portions of the east coast of Florida northward into the Carolinas, which could cause flash, urban, and river flooding. Again, like we just read, though, in the forecast advisory, or the public advisory, that further shifts to this track could cause this significant rainfall threat to reduce considerably. Number 4, the depression is expected to be at or near hurricane intensity when it is closest to the southeast U.S. coast early next week, where there is a risk of storm surge and wind impacts. Although it is too soon to specify the exact location and magnitude of impacts, residents should closely monitor the latest forecast updates and ensure that they have their hurricane plan in place. So again, folks, we've got a little bit of, optimistic news here tonight. Taking a look at our forecast discussion. Now, I'm not going to read this first one. This first one basically is the justification as to why they kept it at 30 knots for this particular advisory. Okay, the second one, this is the most important paragraph that we have. So, aircraft fixes, both at 700 millibars and from the tail Doppler radar analysis, shows the cyclone is meandering right now, with a best guess at motion of 310 degrees at 2 knots. Over the next couple of days, the system should turn north-northwestward with a somewhat faster forward motion, moving within the flow between an upper trough over the southeastern U.S. and a subtropical ridge over the Atlantic. This forecast brings the depression over the central and northwestern Bahamas through early Monday, then towards the southeast U.S. coast by Tuesday. It is notable to point out the system has been moving slower than anticipated over the last 12 to 24 hours, and this could have significant implications on its ultimate track. Even in the first 48 hours of the track, there is quite a bit of spread in the north-south direction in both the deterministic and ensemble model guidance. Faster tracks appear to interact more with the upper level trough to the west, resulting in a track closer to the Carolina coastline. while slower tracks largely miss a direct interaction with this feature and turn sharply east faster as Hurricane Humberto approaches from the east, eroding the mid level ridging, steering Tropical Depression 9 northward. Because it has been moving slower than expected, it is becoming more likely its ultimate track will fall in the slower and sharper east camp. In response, the overall track guidance this cycle has shifted slower and further east, and the NHC track forecast was shifted in that direction. The latest track roughly splits the difference between the Euro and GFS tracks and lies quite close to the HCCA consensus aid, but still not as far south and east as the Google DeepMind ensemble mean. The depression is now showing signs of intensification, or is now showing. I think that's supposed to be. I think there's a mistype there. Yeah, I think that's supposed to be. I think this word is supposed to be not, and not the word now. I believe that the W and the T are misconstrued there. So I think that I'm going to read this correctly with a correction here. The depression is not showing signs of intensification yet, with a broad diffuse structure on aircraft observations persisting. However, the intensity guidance is insistent that deep central convection will soon form near the center, helping to tighten up the surface wind field. While the cyclone will have some southerly shear to deal with, it does not appear to be prohibitively strong, only 15 to 20 knots for the next 48 hours in both the GFS and Euro based ships guidance. That, combined with warm 29 to 30 degrees Celsius sea surface temperatures, should promote steady intensification once a central core develops. And the NHC intensity forecast was nudged up a little higher at 70 knot peak in 48 hours. After this period is where the intensity forecast gets tricky. The large spread in north-south tracks also has a significant impact on the amount of shear the system will face in the 48 to 96 hour time frame. Solutions that are farther south have less shear to contend with and are generally stronger. For now, the latest intensity forecast will cap the peak intensity at 70 knots through the end of the forecast, close to the HCCA intensity guidance. But this could be conservative if the track shifts further south and east. The system could also interact with a baroclinic zone towards the end of the forecast, but because the forecast track remains over warm waters at day 5, extratropical transition won't be shown quite yet. Even if this further offshore track pans out, the wind field is expected to expand quite a bit, and given the expected storm structure, a risk of significant heavy rainfall, storm surge, and wind impacts is still possible for the southeast coast, even if the storm center remains offshore. So, don't let your guards down, folks. It is certainly not over. And there's no guarantee that even if this makes that sharp turn to the east, that it's going to go all the way out to the east. It very well might go out a few hundred miles, stop, turn around, and try to come back again. So that remains a possibility as well. So with all the variables that remain on the table, do not let your guard down. It is looking a little bit more optimistic than what we have been looking at in previous advisories, but it is by far from being clear. And yes, Keith, you are definitely right. You are correct. The rip currents, and I've been telling them for days, brother. Please just stay out of the water. This is not going to be a situation with Humberto out there, and I've got the euro wave up here, and I'll show it here in a little while. But yeah, it's big time, and there'll be some massive destructive waves out there with some persistent onshore winds, and a lot of that energy, honestly, may get depending on what the track is now. If it makes that sharp turn to the east, it'll be interesting to see. But there was a lot of highlight of some very, very heavy onshore winds and potential rough seas north of Cape Hatteras, getting into the mid-Atlantic states. So our rainfall forecast, this was issued at 8 p.m. Eastern. I'm going to be very interested to see what this is going to be in the morning. Currently, we still have areas that could see upwards of localized amounts of 10 inches. But if this trend of this southeast trend continues, we've already seen in, excuse me, in the public advisory that these totals could be forced to change due to subsequent track changes. And again, if it changes the other direction and it starts to drift back towards the coast, these rainfall amounts will then subsequently begin to increase again. So right now, we're still in the unknown phase. It's just highly recommended to watch, to monitor, and to check back with the National Hurricane Center and your local National Weather Service office often. For the folks here in South Carolina and North Carolina where state of emergencies have been declared, monitor from your local officials and your local emergency management office just in case that they issue things specific to your localized area. Taking a look at our rainfall forecast, as you can see, we've got the WPC 0Z here on the left from the official forecast from the Weather Prediction Center. And then we have our NOAA blend of models here on the right. As you can see, there are just slight differences here and there with values, and but for the most part, they are quite similar in some of their thinking. And notice the sudden dry line, just where we're going to see a good amount of rain, and then folks not too far from the coast, you may not see a single drop at all. So there could be a Category 1 hurricane out here off the coast of Florida, maybe 200, 250 miles from your location. Because you live far enough inland, you might not see anything. But I wouldn't recommend going to the beach. It's probably not going to be a good beach day. I wouldn't see that at all. And we've got this out 5 days. I will push this out 7 days. We see a little bit of development of rain out here into the northeastern Gulf. Non-tropical situation, and hopefully it will bring some much needed rain for the Florida Panhandle, southern and Alabama and Georgia. All right, let's now go into our tropical storm force wind speed probabilities again with the shift in some of these tracks. And again, this was issued at 8 p.m., so we're going to have to wait for another intermediate advisory to see what these wind speed probabilities will adjust to. Some of the areas along the coast are in that 30-40 range, and that is what is leading to our watches for east central coast of the Florida Peninsula. Some of our some of our tropical storm force wind speed probabilities here along the coast of the Carolinas, I can tell have dropped just a little bit by the colors. We'll go through real quick and take a look at our wind speed probabilities. Morehead City has come down. We're now to 21% tropical storm force. Surf City, North Carolina, down to 23. Wilmington, North Carolina, down to 11. Bald Head Island has fallen to 30% for tropical storm force. Let's see, Little River down to 26%. All of these, except for our friends here in Florida, have pretty much fallen from the previous advisory. So, when we come back tomorrow for our live, we're going to check this again. And what we want to see is consecutive updates and consecutive advisories with declining percentages. That would make things a little bit, make it a little bit better, maybe feel a little bit better about this. 43% for Cocoa Beach, Patrick Air Force Base at 43%, Fort Pierce at 42%, and West Palm Beach at 34%, respectively, all for the potential of tropical storm force winds. Getting a couple people here for Georgia. Kings Bay, Georgia, 28%. Mayport Naval Station's at 32 up there. Charleston, you are at 29%. Myrtle Beach, Keith, you're at 26% there, brother, with a 4% chance of seeing those 50 knot winds, which that would come off of a squall line anyway. Our most likely arrival time of tropical storm force winds have slowed just a little bit. Earlier, we saw that sometime into the early morning hours, maybe before sunrise, we had the tropical storm force winds potentially timing wise here into parts of the east coast of Florida. With the delay of the storm's northward progression, we now have to where if we see the arrival time of tropical storm force winds here in the tropical storm watched area on the Florida Peninsula, it should be during the daylight hours. Now, once we get up to about Cape Canaveral, just north of Cape Canaveral, that's where the tropical storm force winds, where your most likely arrival time of winds are going to then transition into the nighttime hours from north of that. So if tropical storm force winds were to occur through the overnight hours here for portions of northeastern Florida, getting into coastal portions of Georgia, then on the day on Tuesday is when we may see the arrival of tropical storm force winds here into portions of South Carolina, and potentially in the overnight hours of Tuesday getting into early hours of Wednesday morning if these winds were to impact coastal North Carolina. For Bermuda, you would be sometime there on Thursday, but none of that is guaranteed at this time. All right, our rip currents. Now, I am going to hit the refresh on this just in case we got a new one. As you can see, we have a moderate risk for the majority of the Florida East Coast and portions of the coastal regions here of southeastern Georgia, with a high risk here onto the northern shore of Puerto Rico. Take a look at tomorrow. Tomorrow is a different animal. We've got high risks now starting to show up here onto the East Coast. Please stay out of the water. And then we have our moderate risks here along coastal North Carolina starting to develop. And then also, we still remain with these high risks down here for the Virgin Islands and the northern shore of Puerto Rico. So please, folks, exercise great caution if going out to the Atlantic facing beaches. All right, now we are going to jump over here to now this gorgeous specimen known as Humberto. And I've been told a million times that I'm not saying it correctly, but I do the best that I can. So, oh Lord have mercy, my pronunciations are always going to be flawed. Wait till we get something into Mexico or Central America, even though my daughter's not here to force me to try to read some of these because, those are terrible at that point. looking at this absolutely perfectly symmetrical inner core of a Category 5 monster. Beautiful shot. There is a picture rolling around the internet right now from the International Space Station of the center of, kind of just offset a little bit, but the center of Humberto from the International Space Station. It's not a shot from the geostationary satellites. This is much, 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 much closer. And it looks absolutely ominous. It really, really puts the overall size into picture, because you realize that this person is literally in space in the International Space Station, and you look at that picture and you're like, oh wow. So please be on the lookout for that one. It is amazing. So, with our resident monster out here, we are currently located at 23.4 north, 62.1 west, approximately 365 miles north of the northern Leeward Islands, and about 635 miles south-southeast of Bermuda. Maximum sustained winds 160 miles an hour, moving northwest at 13 miles an hour. So now it's really started to pick up that forward speed. Yesterday it was only moving at 5-6. Now we've got it up to 13. Minimum central pressure of 924 millibars. There are currently no coastal watches or warnings in effect currently, but there will be for the folks here in Bermuda. You will definitely see, at the minimum, tropical storm watches and warnings for the island, no doubt about it. And the only hazards currently affecting land is the surf. It is a 160 mile an hour Category 5. Just don't. Just stay out of the water on this, especially if you are in the areas of, excuse me, especially if you are in the areas of a high rip current risk. Now, we're looking at our forecast cone here. As you could see, major throughout, making the turn and then accelerating out to the north and to the east, potentially getting a little bit too close to Bermuda. But its transition from tropical to extratropical is going to expand this wind field significantly, big time. The only thing that I'm really, really going to kind of get into here, I'm not going to read the top one. That is, again, justification for its intensity. Paragraph 2 here mentions the chance of intensity fluctuations and eye wall replacement cycle with the University of Wisconsin, and mentioning the 78% chance of another eye wall replacement cycle event. And we can show that right here with our 78%. But please keep in mind that this is old data. When we see this, it's at least 6 to 12 hours old. I can tell you it is a lot closer to 6 than it is 12. This just changed recently, but we will get a new update on this, and another eye wall replacement cycle could definitely occur with this. It's pure raw power. And as you can see, 140 knot from the advanced Dorvac technique with a minimum central pressure of 923 millibars. That's crazy. It's crazy strong. The current maximum potential intensity right now over the region in that area is 151 knots. That's come down from the top of what we saw with 155. So it is moving into maybe a little bit less Not obviously not by much from 155 to 151, but at least it's trying to get to that limit point. And if it does get to that limit point, the eye wall replacement cycle is almost guaranteed at that point in time. It will have to transition some of that energy somewhere. So, paragraph three, though, is kind of important because it has the overall track for this. Um, Basically, to make a long story short here, because it is late, there remains quite a bit of a long track spread beyond day four, which is typically seen when tropical cyclones move within the mid latitude upper westerlies and commence a structural transition to an extratropical cyclone. The NHC forecast is nudged towards the TVCA simple consensus and the HCCA corrected aid and is close to the previous advisory. Still forecast to potentially maintain that Category 5 status as long as an eye wall replacement cycle does not start to take place. The maximum sustained winds will definitely remain there into the Category 5 or upper end Category 4 status. Taking a look at our tropical storm force wind speed probabilities via the graphic here, Bermuda, you're definitely getting, there's no doubt about it. All right. I did have the wind speed probabilities up earlier. I guess I accidentally closed out of that. Taking a look at what we've got here, Bermuda, that's a 64% chance of tropical storm force winds. You're guaranteed to get a tropical storm watch and a warning with those percentages that high. You look at what we have with tropical depression number 9. We've got low 40s for the east coast of Florida. They've got tropical storm watches. You're at 64, you're guaranteed to get watches and warnings. With our 50 knot winds, this is our 58 mile an hour winds, the minimum threshold for severe thunderstorm classification from the National Weather Service office, that's at a 22%. Those 50 knot winds are the ones that are responsible. You get those and above, and now we're starting to talk about potential power outages and stuff like that. So, folks, please be mindful of this and keep a very close watch on this. You've got about, right now, your forecast is 72 to 96 hours with your percentages. All right. Once we get to that 48, the watches are going to start to come out. And I do anticipate that we will see watches issued for Bermuda tomorrow. Getting into the forecast advisory, this is the one thing that I do want to show everybody because this wind field is forecast to expand dramatically. Now, granted, this is out by day 5, but the storm is expected to have over a 600-mile diameter tropical storm force wind field. So it is going to expand dramatically. And this is certainly going to impact shipping. And, we're just waiting on this thing to get out. Being that we've had 3 hurricanes in the Atlantic this year, all 3 have become a major hurricane. Tropical Depression 9 is the one that's kind of on the fence. Is it going to be, it's forecast to be a hurricane, and if it doesn't make major hurricane status, it'll be the first hurricane, just normal hurricane that we've had in the Atlantic Basin this year. Not something that turned into a major, and we've had 2 now Category 5 major hurricanes and a high-end Category 4 with Gabrielle. So we've had some, once they get going and we get the hurricane, whoa, it's just green light. Let's show us what you're made of. Our most likely arrival time, again, of tropical storm force winds are going to be maybe after sunrise there on Tuesday morning for the folks in Bermuda. It would be recommended to have your preparations completed by Monday night, though. Just just in case that time frame slips just a little bit. Our hurricane reconnaissance. We'll hit the refresh on this. 1005, 1006. As you can see, it's just meandering down here, just kind of drifting around, trying to figure out what it's going to do. We do have a burst of convection there to the north of where the estimated center is. Dropsondes were being dropped all over the place. They were running alpha patterns, trying to figure out exactly where this thing is and what it is going to do. There are no missions currently underway, but we'll keep a very close watch on it during the overnight hours. And then we'll report back here sometime tomorrow morning, early afternoonish. Taking a look at our 12Z Euro, the reason that I'm pulling this up is I want to show a comparison. We've got the 12Z. I've pushed this out the next 5 days. I guess we'll go to 6. And then here's the 18Z. So there are still some ensemble members, especially with the Euro Legacy, that are calling for a quicker motion and that do make it to land before Humberto's influence. Now, it's becoming increasingly less likely that that is going to occur, but that option is not off the table. If we take a look at the GEFS ensembles, the GEFS ensembles here at the 18Z going out 5 days, I guess we'll push it out 6 to match up with the Euro. We have a couple that get it kind of close and scrape, but that would be considered outliers. The majority of the overall guidance has got that north-south, uncertainty. But as you can see, most of them turn out and go out into the open waters. There are a few that if I go out to day 7, as you can see, that are kind of left behind. But we're going to have to wait and see exactly how far north that Tropical Depression 9 can get in association with Humberto, because I can tell you this. If you look at this graphic right here and the legend for this graphic, right here in this upper right hand corner, it shows that these colors that we're looking at here are registering 960 to 979 hectopascals. That's not true. The storm is currently in the 920s. So its influence could be a little bit stronger than what the GFS is calling for. Taking a look at the AI models. The Euro AI, if I pop in, try to get a little closer, we still have a couple of these ensembles. It's not locked in stone yet. It's looking better, but it's not there yet. The majority and the highest probability of the guidance do make that sharp turn out to the east. But again, folks, it's not completely over and done with yet. And you want to talk about sharp turn to the east. Now, the Google DeepMind said, look, all right, no chance. We're going to go north for a little while. We are going to flip the right hand turn signal on, and we are going to just get out of Dodge. That would be the most optimal outcome for U.S. interests, although that puts Bermuda right back under the gun with something that could bring a secondary round of impacts. So, and as you could see, we've got here, they calling it a Category 4 for the 18Z, although we definitely know that it is a 5. And you could see here, all 50 ensemble members are calling it a 4. It was a 5. And then maybe expecting a little bit of weakening, maybe an eye wall replacement cycle. It may be achieving back to that 5 status if it does again tomorrow. So it could very well do it, folks. No doubt about it. But looking into what we have here associated with the northern draw. The Deep Mind is probably the best looking model out of them all. And before I go, I do have to show we don't have that's out there as well. So I've been keeping a close watch on that because those folks in Vietnam, they've been getting stomped all year long. They've been in that flow, similar to what we've seen with Bermuda with the threats. This is the super ensembles. This is a combination of the Euro, the UK Met, GEFS, and the Canadian ensemble members. This is from the 12Z ensemble run. As you could see, once we start really including the Canadian and the Euro, or not the Euro, but the UK Met ensemble members, we really, really, really start to get a good amount of the probability heading there off to the east. And again, that would be an optimal situation. I do have our hurricane specifics here tonight, but one thing that we can do here is go through and check our trends. The GFS has kind of come back, popped back a little bit to the east on its latter part, running true with its previous run. The Euro, as you can see here, now has it the operational. The 18Z has it coming out, stalling out. Does not. It's a little different, not by much, but it doesn't go out that far, being that it's the 18Z. Again, the UK Met steady run after run after run after run with this sharp east turn. Just run after run. It's been that way the entire time. It has never deviated, and it's never gotten it above 30 degrees north. Not one time. So that is even with my latitude here in the Tallahassee region is 30 degrees north. It's never made it that far. And the UK Met, like I've said a couple times, that every once in a great while, that model will strike gold and will show something way earlier. It did it with Ian. It was the only one that was persistent with that. This has had its persistence again this time. And it's also starting to line up with some of what other models are starting to think. So this may be another one of those cases to where the UK Met strikes it right, hits the nail right on the head. The Canadian, as you could see, it's basically been all over the place, but still has that sharp east turn. H Wharf, sharp east turn. Potentially getting it now. This would not. This would get me right here to where we've got 4 for 4 at this point in time, where Tropical Depression 9 eventually becomes a Category 3 hurricane. But again, it is making that sharp right hand turn. H bond steady. It's been steady. It's never deviated from this. Category 1. And then, I've got a hard time believing the H-bond because of the fact of how slow this has been to try to progress up away from eastern Cuba. It's taking its leisurely time, to say the least. Halves A, as you can see, quite a few of the runs before were bringing it up and getting it very close to land. Now it is shifted a little bit further offshore and it is now starting to make that east-southeasterly drift in response. So it'll be interesting to see if the 0Z calls for something similar to that sharp eastern turn. Halves B calls for that eastern turn, but gets it up a little bit further to the north and then kind of stalls it out and then makes that sharp easterly turn. Halves B intensity, maybe, you can't trust those big time spikes. You just can't. has a Cat 1. Taking a look at our HCCA consensus model, as you could see, it has been steadily shifting south and to the east over the last 6 runs. And if we take a look at the intensity, maybe a little bit more intense, kind of like what Dr. Papin said in the discussion regarding that little bit further south, a little bit less shear, and then that may allow for a little bit more of an intensification opportunity. Taking a look at the TVCN consensus, again, further south, further east. That trend has been noticed considerably by both of the consensus models. If we take a look at the overall intensity, Cat 1. The official forecast track from the National Hurricane Center, I do not believe this is going to contain the most recent. It very well might. And as you can see, that sharp easterly turn still trending south and to the east. So it's not a lock yet, folks, but it's looking better. We've got a little bit of optimism. We're still going to have some shear. Using the GFS solution here tonight. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So I have come forward 48 hours into the future, and as you can see, there will be some of that moderate southerly shear, and there will guaranteed to be dry air associated with this as well. So just please, folks, keep a very close watch on it. Nothing to be too overly, nothing to panic about. Just be aware. Make sure that you have your hurricane kits in place just in case that this decides that it wants to act and behave a little bit differently than what the trends are calling for here and have been over the course of today. We could wake up in the morning and things be completely different. So I'm not anticipating that to occur, but we hope for the best. We prepare for the worst, hope for the best. And if anything changes, if you prepare for the worst, it can only get better. So that's about all that I have here tonight, folks. I'm not going to go too overly crazy. We could go into much more, getting into local forecasts, looking into some deep analytical satellite data and all this other stuff. But it's late, so I'm going to go ahead and close it down. I've got a couple things that I've got to do in the morning. I'm probably going to be live. I will set an event tab there on Facebook for our folks on YouTube. I just don't know how. I got to get my daughter to teach me. I've never done YouTube. This is our first year. We've always been strictly and exclusively there on Facebook. A lot of people are trying to get me to expand, but I'm not the most technologically savvy individual when it comes to social media platforms and all this other stuff. I know the weather. Well, I know the tropics. I can't say I know the weather. I'm definitely not an expert, but I certainly know my tropics. There's no doubt about it. Studied for a very long time and just strictly on the tropics. So I am limited, but I am quite confident in what I see when it comes to the tropics here. So, all right, folks, I am going to go ahead and shut it down tonight. I'm thinking maybe around noon tomorrow. I won't be able to catch the 11. And to me, it would be kind of pointless to go before then because I would be using old data at that point. I would much rather have a fresh primary advisory to work with. So sometime around noon-ish Eastern, 11 a.m. Central-ish, somewhere in that range, I've got to check on, it's really all depending upon if I get caught behind somebody one of those country Sunday drivers. If I get caught behind one of them, it's gonna take me quite a bit of time to get back here to the house. We live in a very rural setting, so good old country roads. We don't get the traffic of Southern Florida up here, thankfully. So, all right, everybody, I'm going to go ahead and sign off here for tonight. Again, we will be running at least a special live in the morning and our 6 p.m. live Eastern time tomorrow evening here on Facebook and YouTube. We're going to reserve the right for tomorrow night, a late night live, because if this is still continuing to trend a hard eastward shift, then the great rainfall threat that triggered these special lives, or that great potential, that will no longer be a viable thing. And then at that point, we'll just go back to our once a day coverage. So thank you for joining me, everybody, and have a wonderful evening, and we'll talk to you again tomorrow. Good night.